All right, everybody, and thanks for joining us again today on Clearing the Benches, where we're coming to you live from Studio C, where today we're going to be doing our divisional predictions. So, starting off in the East, let's go out to the Atlantic Division, where we've got the Toronto Maple Leafs finishing in first place. They got the big four. Matthews is off with the bang, starting off with a hat trick already. If they can get some back end help, on let their D play good D, I'm sure they're going to get all the goals that they need. It's just a matter of can they keep the puck out of their own net. Really, they are seemingly to me a team that's controlling their own destiny. If they can help themselves by, like I said, keeping the puck out of their own net, they should be able to score 4, 5, 6 goals a game with the firepower they've got. So I've got them coming in first. Coming in second, I've got the Buffalo Sabres, another team with a lot of guys up front that can put the puck in the net. You got TNT, you got Cousins, you got Skinner, you got a couple other kids that are coming up through the pipeline there as well. Olafson, he seems like a power play specialist, but if they can get him on track where, 5-on-5, he's doing a better job. I think they've got a real shot at making the playoffs for a first time in a long time. Devin Levi, again, should give them a really good chance to win almost every game that he starts. So Buffalo Sabres, to me, I feel like are almost a shoo-in for the playoffs this year. Third, I've got the Florida Panthers. I know coming off of last year's big, surprisingly deep playoff run that they made all the way to the finals, I would think that they would probably take a kind of a step back in terms of, they barely made the playoffs. So in terms of the regular season, they really didn't, do anything big last year. But this year, I think they will do a little bit better in the regular season. I think now they've got last year's run under their belt. They know that Kachuk's their leader. They know Barkov is a guy that's going to be able to play both ends of the ice. They know that when he's healthy, Bobrovsky's going to be able to do what he did last year. The thing is, can he get healthy again? Can he match that? That's going to be the big question. But I've got the Sabres coming in. I've got the Panthers coming in third. Fourth, I've got the Boston Bruins. I feel like they've lost a lot offensively in Bergeron, Krejci, bringing in guys like Lucic and Kevin Shattenkirk, to me, just don't look like the pedigree that you would need when you're going to make a deep run in the playoffs. Those guys seem like, maybe don't want to say we're in a rebuild, but we could be in a rebuild. I know that they just named Marchand their captain, which I'm a little bit iffy on. He's an emotional guy, and you don't really want your emotions overflowing through your captain. You'd rather have it maybe coming through a Lucic. So I've got the Bruins coming in fourth, and I honestly think that they're going to be struggling to make the playoffs. So if they do, it's just going to be by the skin of their teeth. Tampa Bay, I've got coming in fifth. I feel like this is the year, that they do the drop-off. Everyone says it every year, and they haven't started to do it yet, but I feel like this is the year. Vasilevsky's already, banged up a little bit. I feel like a lot of these guys, are going to have targets on them. They proved themselves with big years that guys weren't expecting to prove themselves with, 0.51 goals. Stamkos is getting old, but the guy can still shoot. And, you put him on that left face-off dot, and he gets that, off-wing slap shot. He still has the ability, in my opinion, to put up 40 goals. So I feel like they're going to do a little bit less than they've done in the past, but, they still may be sniffing around a wild card spot. We'll have to see, but for now, I've got them finishing fifth. Finishing sixth, I've got the Senators. I feel like they're just still too young. I feel like they're just still not having found their foundation yet. They know Brady Tkachuk is their leader as well, but as far as goaltending, D, I know they just gave Jake Sanderson that huge deal, but the kid's only got 1 year under his belt, and hopefully he proves that contract right, and he has 8 great years up there. Chikrin on the back end as well. He's thought of more of an offensive defenseman than he is a guy who's gonna keep the puck out of the net, but he does play significant amount of minutes, and you're going to need to rely on him 5-on-5 as well, not just on power play and penalty kill. I don't see them making the playoffs. I feel like they're still another year or so away. They may be sniffing around the wild card spot, but in reality, I don't think they're going to ever get close enough where they're going to be in a wild card spot. Seventh, I've got the Detroit Red Wings. In my opinion, I just feel like they have too many B and C level guys, not enough A guys. You know, you have Larkin, you know, and even DeBrincat, is he really an A guy, or is he just a B plus guy who was an A guy for a couple of years and then, you know, was last year his true self and you see what he's really all about? Or is he a bona fide 40 goal scorer? You know, can you put him out there with Larkin and he would, you know, potentially take the place of Bertuzzi? You know, Bertuzzi, I think, put up 30 goals his best year up there, and I think that DeBrincat could definitely do that. But I feel like they have too many, you know, Andrew Copps, the JT Confers of the world. I think those are guys that are good piece guys, but I don't think those guys are your go-to guys. And as far as, you know, Larkin goes, maybe he's going to get 75, 80 points this year, maybe 85 points. But I definitely don't see them even being close to a playoff position. And finally, I've got finishing eighth, the Canadiens. Lot of youth on that team. Marty St. Louis, I think, is doing a good job. I think he's taking his time. I think he's molding that team into something that, you know, kind of almost in a general way of saying it, a team that played like he did. You know, kind of guys overlooked him. They thought of him as an underachiever. But then you looked, he was at the top of the scoring, you know, a couple of years in a row there. I know the trade didn't work out to the Rangers, and it was, you know, kind of thought of as like a bust. But anyway, back to the Canadiens. I feel like St. Louis is molding that team into a grinding team, a team that's going to play well in the corners. I think they're going to have a couple of guys that can put the puck in the net, and Slavkovsky, Cole Caulfield, obviously, has done a great job of that so far. But, you know, building on the back end as well. You know, you got Reinbacher coming up in the future. Their big thing as well is going to be, where are they going to replace Carey Price? You know, that's a decade of excellence. And, you know, you knew that guy was good for 30-plus wins every year. Where are you going to replace that? So, finally, I've got the Canadiens finishing last in the Atlantic. Moving over to the Metro, New Jersey Devils. They're kind of like my juggernaut for this year. I just look at all the weapons they've got up front. You know, you got Hughes, you got Heischer, you got Mercer, you got, you know, these guys that can just put the puck in the net, and they're also known for playing in their own end. These guys are all 200-foot players. You know, I know they let a couple of guys that had been there for a while go, you know, Miles Wood, you know, but in reality, look, last year, they bring in Timo Meier. So, you know, Miles Wood, I'm sure, is going to, you know, play a good role over in Colorado, but he's, you know, not going to be missed in Jersey, that's for sure. I think Jersey's got good depth on the back end, and I think the goalies from last year, if they can just duplicate what they did last year, I think that the Devils kind of proved to themselves that they can do it. And I really do feel like they're going to come out of the East this year, and I think they're going to possibly even win the Cup. I think that, you know, in my opinion, they're a 50-50 chance to win the Cup. Second, I've got my beloved Rangers. You know, a who's who of all-star types, but, you know, again, a lot of these guys look like Tarzan, play like Jane when it comes down to it. You know, Panarin fell asleep in the playoffs again. You know, Zibanejad is a 90, 95 point scorer every year. But the guy needs help when it comes in the playoffs, and you can't just rely on him, you know, to shoulder the load every time when you need a big goal. Kreider is getting up there in age, you know, and I don't want to say it, but he seems like he's starting to become a one-trick pony. He had the big 50-plus goal-scoring year a couple of years ago, and last year dropped off significantly. And it seems like his game is just net front presence or bust. Back end, you know, Fox, Miller, this guy's accolades, but when it comes down to it, you know, you fine-tooth their game. And in the playoffs, I think they both got exposed. I think defensively, they both got shortcomings. I think Miller needs to play more aggressively. And I think defensively, Fox needs to maybe take a step, you know, his foot off the gas a little bit offensively and think a little bit more defensively. Third, Carolina Hurricanes. Great regular season team. I don't know how they do it every year. There's another team full of, in my opinion, second and third line guys. But yet they still do it. I'll say Jordan Staal is a true leader, and the guy possibly could go to the Hall of Fame. The problem is with them, the last 3 conference finals that they've gone to, they've gotten swept all 3. They goaltending, they do really well for a couple of years in terms of just what they needed just to win games. And they won a lot of games, but they weren't blowing teams out, and they weren't shutting a lot of teams out either. I think there was a lot of 3-1 games, a lot of 4-2 games in there. I think that they're probably going to make the playoffs. I really do. But if they had a drop off and a team like, Pittsburgh got hot with Crosby, and, if Malkin came to life, I could see them overtaking them. So leads me to my 4th team, which is the Penguins. Crosby's got 2 goals already, a game into the season. And it looks like, he's same old Crosby. He's just going to try to will himself to make that team win. They're going to need guys, Gunsel. They're going to need, some help on the back end too. You got Carlson and you got Letang. But in the first game, at least what I saw, Carlson just no D. And Letang just seems like maybe his best years are behind him. He seems like, a couple of guys went around him, I don't want to say easily, but significantly, where in years past I thought he would at least gotten a stick check on a guy, or at least driven a guy wide, whereas these guys were able to get around him and then sweep back up underneath and, try to stuff a shot past the goalie, from in close, right inside the crease. So I do feel like they have definitely got star power, and they definitely have the ability to fill up the net if all these guys were to, play to their potential. Malkin, to me, is going to be a big question mark. If Malkin can get back to even 80 points, 90 points, I feel like that would be significant for them in terms of making the playoffs, or at least being in a playoff hunt. 5th, I've got the Washington Capitals. I know it's a team full of older guys, in my opinion. I look at them, I see, a lot of guys that are in their golden years, a lot of guys that may not be in the league 5 years from now. It seems like their goalie situation is just, I don't know, I know Kemper won a cup in Colorado, but, last year didn't look like he was a cup-winning goalie, that's for sure. And you're going to need a cup-winning goalie if you're going to win a cup. And, I feel like a team like Washington, you would need all of those guys to perform above their level. All of them. Ovechkin, Backstrom. You would need Backstrom to score 50 assists, 60 assists, 70 assists for them to really, take a big jump up. You're going to challenge the Rangers, you're going to challenge Carolina, you're going to challenge the Devils, you're going to challenge Toronto. I don't see it happening unless those guys are, somehow to dip back into the golden years and they were able to, take a swill of, youth, sip of youth hockey there and, get back to the, the way they played 5 years ago. But anyway, moving on, I see the Islanders finishing 6th in the Metro. Another team that I just see has got older guys on them. When you look at the guys that are supposed to be putting points up on the board, my opinion, you're looking at Matty Barzal, and I know he was injured, but he definitely had an off year last year, and I feel like if a guy like him is going to, if the Islanders are going to be significant or even relevant, a guy like Matty Barzal's got to score 40 goals. That's just me thinking out loud. I feel like it is really his team. I feel like when they drafted him, they were hoping that he was going to be the guy, that he became their superstar. Obviously, Tavares, that ship set sail, 4 or 5 years ago now. So that's when, in my opinion, they started to play more of a team game. They relied on that fourth line with Clutterbuck and, Cizikas and Matt Martin. Those guys scored a lot of clutch goals, too. They scored a lot of shorthanded goals. Those guys shut down a lot of teams, big scorers just by grinding it out. But you're not going to win enough games with that kind of, game plan moving in. And again, you got to have to get somebody up front. Bo Horvat. I don't know. Is he the Bo Horvat? They just signed him to an 8-year deal, but is he really going to put up, my opinion, 100 points? Would be successful for Bo Horvat in terms of the Islanders having at least a chance at sniffing at the wild card. But I just don't see it happening. 7th, I've got the Philadelphia Flyers. They're always going to give you an effort. I know that a lot of their guys are starting to come back. That Sean Couturier, great to see him back. The guy is a Flyer true and through and through and true. And I feel like if a guy like him were to make it back and be able to mentor some of these younger kids that they've got coming up, I feel like not this year, not next year, but in a couple of years, and then, when Mitchkov comes along, you don't know where a couple of these kids that are in the lineup right now, the Farabees of the world, you don't know the potential that these kids might, have. So it's not going to be this year. I know that Tortorella always squeezes, the most out of guys, and he definitely has a tendency of finding your weakness and making you work on it, so that by the end of the season, hopefully you've improved and it's not a weakness anymore. And sometimes maybe it's even a strong point. Maybe it's a guy who doesn't work well on the face-offs, but Tortorella is a detail-oriented guy, and as much as I just don't see them winning many games, and again, the Carter Hart, I think this would be the year, a trade, and you never know. Maybe the Flyers get a nice piece in return that can help them, jumpstart the rebuild and, move them forward a little bit faster than they expected. But not this year. So, 8th, I've got the Columbus Blue Jackets. I know that they've got some name guys, Johnny Hockey, you got Fantilli, you got Laine, you got Werenski, goaltending. Is it going to be enough? You need your goalie to win 10 games a year for you in terms of stealing games. Games that you shouldn't be winning, they got to win. Whether, maybe somehow they keep you in a game enough that you go to overtime and your team gets lucky and they score 3-on-3 and, you squeak out a win, a game that you shouldn't have got. I think those are the games that Columbus is going to win this year. I don't see them winning more than 28, 29, 30 games. But, who knows? I might be wrong. I do feel like Fantilli is going to be a Matty Beniers type. I think he's going to be a good two-way player. I think he's going to be somebody who's going to be giving it his all every shift. And I think you're going to see more and more guys like him coming up through the ranks shortly, because it seems like these kids that maybe are going through the college or the US NTDP thing, the program there rather, I feel like they're coming out a little bit more advanced. They're a little bit more polished. They're a little bit more NHL ready. So, I'm definitely excited to see what Fantilli can do. Listen, even in a year when you got guys like Logan Cooley and, you got Bedard, you got Leo Carlson, who knows? Fantilli could get hot. Maybe the guy scores 40 goals this year and he wins the Rookie of the Year. You never know. But as far as the Blue Jackets, I see him finishing last. Moving over to the West. Out in the Pacific, who's taking down the Knights? I just don't see it. I look at these other teams in there, the Kings, Edmonton, Seattle, would be, one of those three could probably get, hot and have a hot streak, and possibly overtake them and win the division. But, on paper, I just don't see it. I remember last year there was a stretch of games where Vegas wasn't playing very well. They were flat. I saw the Blues to the Coyotes. They lost 4-1. If you would have told me that, and that was 2 months before the playoffs started. If you'd have told me back then that the Knights were going to go on to win the Cup, I would have said you're crazy. But they did. And the reason they did was all of their depth. You look, all of their forwards, they all play a 200-foot game. All of them. Look at the big guys they have on D. It's like going through a minefield back there. You go through there, you're going to get blown up. One of those guys is going to take you down. It's just trying to make it all the way through to the goaltender, whichever spin the roulette wheel to see which goalie they're going to have in there tonight. just to make it through and get shots through is a task. They, to me, coming out of the West again, possibly a team like the Avs or the Stars or maybe the Kings or, if the Oilers were to get goaltending, maybe one of those could take them down. But in terms of picking a favorite right now, I would have to say, to me, I got Vegas coming out of the West again. Second in the Pacific, I got the Kings. I think slowly but surely, Rob Blake and Pierre-Luc Dubois and Luc Robitaille put together a very, very solid team. I think this team is going to surprise. Not that they're, flew under the radar. I think teams on the people on the West Coast know about them, but I think they're going to surprise and they're going to win a lot of games on the East Coast. I think the Kings are a really well-rounded team. What can you say about Anze Kopitar? The guy's definitely a Hall of Famer. If they put a statue of Dustin Brown outside Staples Center, then they're going to probably put 3 of Kopitar out there. The guy's 15 of the last 16 years leads the team in scoring. And it's not like they've had schlubs on their team. They've had, Tyler Toffoli. They've had guys that can score on that team. Kempe scored 40 goals. Guys who can score. But every year, you look at this, at scoring, there he is at the top, Kopitar. And talk about a guy who plays a 200-foot game, and smart. To me, a captain through and through, and Hall of Famer for sure. Goaltending is going to be their question mark again. Cam Talbot, not going to be it. The Kings are not going to win enough 7-5 games to, stay in the hunt. You're not. You got too many teams out there that can put the puck in the net. You just got way too many teams that are also able to score 6-7 goals if they have to. So as far as the Kings, I think they're going to be solid second place. And listen, again, if they were to come up with a goaltender that was steady, just better than they've had in the last couple of years, they might be able to make a deep run into the playoffs. I really do. And they possibly could challenge, Vegas. Third in the Pacific, I've got the Edmonton Oilers. Goaltending. First game of the season, give up 8 goals. I know it's first game of the season, but they also played the Canucks, which tells me Vegas might have scored 16 goals against them. So they're going to need to get their back end in order. I am not a big Darnell Nurse fan. I know that the guy is massive. He makes a lot of money. And, some of the statistics say that, he's better than he is. I don't know. In the playoffs, to me, that's when guys prove themselves. That's when the Petrangelos and the Alec Martinezes of the world show you who's boss. And Darnell Nurse, I don't know. I just don't see it coming out of their back end. Evan Bouchard, he's more of an offensive defenseman. To me, they need defensive defensemen. You get a guy like Kane. Kane could play a 200-foot game. Kane can help you out coming back, through the defensive zone, coming back behind the net, coming back, giving you an option to break out of the zone with, or it's not going to, have the defense under a barrage all the time, where it can be just a quick outlet pass and, and the defense, move up ice without, taking a big hit or, making a mistake behind the net where it can cost you. The puck winds up in the back of your net real quick. I think that's going to be their downfall again. I think until, like so many teams, this is the year that goaltending is going to be, the teams that win have good goalies. And I think maybe one of these teams is going to win a lot of games, 7-6, 8-5, 10-7. Could be Toronto, could be the Rangers. I just feel like in terms of the teams that are going to do the most damage in the playoffs, it's going to be the teams with big back ends. And right now, I just don't see that coming out of Edmonton. I think they're going to need to possibly move on from one of these guys and, move on to a more defensive-minded defenseman, is all I can say. Fourth in the Pacific, I've got the Seattle Kraken. Seattle is one of those teams that at first I was like, and then I watched them last year, and then I watched them last year in the playoffs, and I was really impressed with this team. Good teamwork ethic. It seems like everything they do is they move, as a unit together. It didn't seem like they had too many defensive breakdowns. It didn't seem like you saw them caught up ice too many times, defensemen caught up 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s. I just didn't see it all the time. And, when you look at theirs, defensemen, some big guys out there, Adam Larson, Alexiak, these are guys 6'5", 6'7". But, they don't skate like Paul Coffey and Bobby Orr, but they get the job done. They know what they've got to do, play defense. They're not out there trying to score 30 goals. They're not trying to join the rush every time. They've got plenty of guys in Seattle that could put the puck in the net. Plenty of guys in Seattle that could put the puck in the net. For all we know, Beniers can score 40 goals this year. McCann scored 40 goals. A couple of their other guys. You've got the ability there. It's just a matter of, can they get it all lined up at the same time? I definitely think they're going to be in a playoff hunt, for sure. I think if they were to squeak into the playoffs, I think that is a team that could possibly do some damage like they did last year. And I feel like they're kind of like in that Vegas mode of now they know they can win. And teams that know they can win, that's something big to have in your back pocket when you go up against, the Giants. A team that, is used to coming in and steamrolling teams. And now you got this, and you pull out that card of, hey, we beat these guys in their home ice last year in the playoffs. We can do it again. So as far as Seattle goes, definitely see them in the playoff hunt. And their goaltending to me, I feel like they've got a solid 1A. I feel like if they had to, either one of those guys would play 50 games, and I really don't think that the amount of points that the team were to get would vary that much. Maybe 5, 6, 7 points, but I really think that either goalie that they have in there could do an equal job. So moving on, fifth, I'm going to go with the Vancouver Canucks. I think Rick Tocchet is a guy that if you give him a chance, and I know he had a chance in Arizona, but I don't think he had the talent. And I think he's got more talent in Vancouver than he did here in Arizona. And because of that, I just feel like they're going to have more of a confidence this year. JT Miller, to me, that guy's a first-line center on 95% of the teams in the league. And if you moved him out of Vancouver, guy scored 99 points last year. Who's to say, if you were to put him with Matthew Tkachuk or Barkov, the guy would score 120 points. I mean, and he's a gritty guy, He's not afraid to stick the stick in the back of your leg when you're, trying to get in front of his goalie. He's definitely gritty. Besser, hat trick to start off the season. I mean, what else could you ask for? These guys are bringing it from game one, and you just, it's a long season and you don't want to get ahead of yourself. But a guy like Tocchet is detail-oriented. He's going to make sure that they don't get ahead of themselves. He's going to make sure that they know about every mistake that they made, and he's going to bring it to their attention. And I don't think Tockett's the type of guy that's going to sit there and bang it over the head with it. I think he's going to be the guy who's going to call you into his office and go, hey, last night, this, that, and the other thing happened. Let's work on it, and, scoot off and send so-and-so in. 2 years out, I think, in terms of if they were to get a couple of players, that they've got right now. Pedersen, to me, I don't want to say that he's the only guy out there, but 2 years to me away in terms of maybe making it to where they could sniff the playoff wild card hunt. Sixth in the Pacific, I've got the Calgary Flames. I think this is a team that they don't want to say they're in a rebuild. They're in a definite transitional mode, from GM to coach to, is Jonathan Huberdeau a 50-point guy or is he a 115-point guy? That's a giant question mark hanging over their heads. I don't think defensively that they've got enough grit and, keep going back to the well, but Vegas-type defensemen, guys that can blow you up. I don't think that there's enough guys that are going to slow you down, and I think that they're going to give up a lot of shots. I just feel like a team like Calgary doesn't have what Vancouver has on the back end. And I feel like they definitely use just enough help coming back from the forwards that it's going to need to almost protect the D so that the D isn't getting barraged. I hate to say it, but I could see Calgary giving up 5, 6, 7 goals in a lot of games this year. So I've got them finishing 6th in the Pacific. 7th, I've got Anaheim. 4 years from now, this team might be a perennial cup contender. John Gibson is obviously going to be gone. He said a million times he's played his last game there. There's all these rumors about things he said or he hasn't said. Look, I would just sit down with the guy, and I think he already took a puck to the throat in preseason. But if I were the Papa Beak, I would sit down with the guy and I would say, listen, what are a couple places that we could send you to where you'd be happy that we could possibly get enough return where we don't feel like we're getting ripped off? And, Papa Beak, just basing on the deals that he just gave Drysdale and Trevor Zegras, not looking to get ripped off by anybody. Maybe when he gets healthy, maybe, 20 games in and John Gibson's played 10 games and maybe he's, 5-3-2. Maybe a team like Toronto says, you know what? Maybe he's enough to put us over the hump. Maybe he's the guy that we could, put in the net and get us to the cup. And they, give up somebody for him. You're not going to give up Nylander for him, but maybe you package, John Gibson and, maybe they gave up one of their young kids. Maybe, I don't want to say McTavish, he's too good, but, you got somebody down in San Diego that you could give up and you could package with Gibson. Maybe you do get a Nylander back. And, Nylander's not that old. Put him in a line with Zegras and McTavish. And Troy Terry. Right away, you got instant scoring ability. D, I know they bought Gudis in and they brought him in, just to mentor these kids and, probably protect some of these guys. I know that Zegras is, supposedly going to get in a couple of run-ins this year because of the things he said last year. So maybe they bought Gudis in to kind of protect him. But as far as, I just don't see them finishing with the Ducks maybe more than like 63, 65 points. And if they do deal Gibson or if they do try to make a deal for somebody where it kind of sets them back a year so that they could move 2 steps forward next year, they could possibly even finish last behind San Jose. And finally, we do get to San Jose. I really like what Mike Greer is doing up there. I feel like he is putting a solid team together. I feel like he's kind of picking at every position. 1 year it's forward, then D, looking at goalies. I feel like he knows that it's a process, and I know that he knows it's a rebuild. And it's not going to happen overnight, and it probably is 5 years away. Could be 4 years and they're in a playoff hunt. But I think that Mike Greer realistically looks at this team, and I know that he's got some, older pieces that, you could still get some first rounders for, and then you start moving, first rounders, and if you're finishing possibly last overall and you get a guy like Scalabrini, and then next year, somehow you get the first overall pick or second or third overall pick, that speeds up the process real quick. So as far as the Sharks go, it's going to be a long year for them. I think this is the year they're probably going to move on from Hurdle. I feel like, Logan Couture, these are guys that if they were to go to a team, the Devils, sky's the limit. You never know. But it's just a matter of do those teams want to give up what, San Jose is going to want in return. So finally, let's move over to the Central. And in the Central, I've got the Colorado Avalanche winning the division. Rantanen, McKinnon, Makar, and, shockingly, even Georgiev. I know that they got knocked out first round last year by Seattle. And I think, to be honest with you, a lot of teams would have got knocked out last year by Seattle in the first round. I think that nobody saw that coming. And, I think last year, more than this year, I feel like they were feeling the effects of the Landeskog injury. I think now that they got a year under their belt without him, and the possibility of him coming back is pretty slim, I think now they're kind of like more in the now and moving forward mode. Until one of these other teams in that division, and the only other team that I could possibly see doing it is the Stars. coming out of nowhere. I just don't see one of these other teams overtaking them for first place. Moving on to second, Stars. Good goaltending, good D. Guys got to put the puck in the net. To me, just looking at their lineups, pretty significant higher quality of guys and better seasoned guys, than you're seeing in Arizona, Minnesota, Nashville, Winnipeg, or Chicago. I think these guys have been there before. I know that they got real close. Listen, they came up against Vegas, who won the Cup. Somehow Vegas gets knocked out before they play Dallas. Dallas could be the team that comes, in the playoffs. In terms of playing up against the Avalanche in the playoffs, that's a coin toss in my opinion. And I think Ottinger's a better goalie than Georgiev is. And, maybe you're not going to get the scoring that you would get from Colorado in Dallas, but defensively I think it matches out. So I think in terms of, the future, maybe the Stars are getting old and they're going to, move on from some guys. But for this year, they definitely have a good chance. And, second place to me would be a worst case scenario for them. First place, best case scenario. Moving on to third, and surprisingly right here, I am picking my local Arizona Coyotes. I think with the additions that Bill Armstrong has made, not only in the offseason, but the last couple of drafts, the kids are ready to play. And I'm a little bit disappointed. I'm a little bit surprised that Dylan Guenther, after playing 33 games last year for the Coyotes, was sent down to his juniors, didn't really have such a great Memorial Cup, and then apparently he didn't have such a great preseason because he didn't make the team, and he's starting off the season in Tucson. Hopefully, that gives him a little kick in the butt, or I don't know what it's going to take, but I did not see that coming. I thought for sure. I even had him penciled in possibly on the, top two lines, but apparently not. So, Cooley, Keller, Michelli, people don't know about Michelli. Kid could have won the Rookie of the Year last year, and he wasn't even a finalist. He had more points per game than Beniers. He had more assists, like 7 or 8 more assists in like 15 less games than Beniers. So, when you think of Beniers, you got to think of this kid Michelli too. And this year, they have told him, shoot the puck more, which is a Coyotes issue in general. But I think they brought guys in that are going to address that. They brought in some shooters. They brought in Zucker. I know Dumba is not afraid to shoot the puck from the point. So I think they'll increase that. But as far as the firepower that they've got up front, listen, Logan Cooley could win the Rookie of the Year. You don't know it. This kid is superstar potential. Everywhere he's gone, he's lit it up. He scored a highlight reel goal in Australia. And, I'm not going to, say that the kid's going to score 76 goals and take down Solani's franchise record. But if the kid scored 40 goals, it would not surprise me in the least. Keller, if all of these guys around him play as well as they did last year, if McBain takes a step forward, if Krause takes a step forward, if Zucker just provides the leadership and stability that they brought him in to bring, I see Keller could be 90, 95, even 100 points this year. Defensively, they have it where I feel like they, considering the other teams in their division, I feel like their defense is equal to, if not just a touch better than most of the teams that I've got listed underneath them. They brought back Troy Stetcher. Guy's detail-oriented. I know on most teams he's like a 5th or 6th defenseman, and he might even be that on the Coyotes. But detail-oriented, does not like to lose. When he's out there, you notice him, and it's not for the wrong reasons. You see him making nice little crisp breakout passes. You see him putting sticks on pucks when guys are coming over the blue line. He plays a well-rounded game. Another guy they brought in is going to help them tremendously. Sean Dursey. Kid is young, too. I don't even think he's 24, 25 yet. And last year, they had him on the second power play for the Kings. And that, for sure, to me, he's going to be the guy. It's probably going to be him and Michelli at the point on power play 1. You're going to probably have Schmaltz, Keller, possibly Cooley up front, McBain up front, Krause up front. Who knows? They could mix it up. But Dursey, for sure, is a guy that is going to be a significant upgrade. They bought in Kerfoot. One of the things that they like most about these guys is that they all have availability. These guys have not all missed chunks of time. They've all been available. All played 75, 80, 82 games the last couple of years, where when you need them, they're there. And, nothing for nothing, but you see what happens to a team like Colorado. Makar got a little banged up in the playoffs, and out you go. So, goaltending could be a problem for them. I feel like they just kind of have average goaltending at best. I love Connor Ingram, but I'm not going to sit here and say he's, Sorokin or Shesterkin, because he's not. He had a streak last year where he put together about 10 really, really solid games. Hell, he shut out Tampa Bay, Tampa Bay had 51 shots, and he shut them out. So it's not like you can't do it, but can they do it consistently? And can you do it for longer than 10 game stretches? Vamelka, I got my doubts about him. I feel like he's another guy. Can you really get more than 10 game stretches out of him? And I hate to say it, but you're going to need longer stretches than that out of these guys. You're going to need these guys who are going to be able to perform, and they're going to be able to give you 50, 60 games, and you have a 1 and a 1A. Having a 1A kind of combination, I don't know. But anyway, I got the Coyotes making the playoffs. Fourth, sniffing in the wild card, Minnesota. I feel like they're kind of getting old. I know that they've got, some good youth. Kaprizov, superstar. Boldy, to me, he's in one of those young guns, Dylan Cousins types, can score, can back check, will fight, just brings it all together. And again, these kids are young. So when you look at them and you think to yourself, a couple of years down the road, these kids could be superstars. And, Minnesota might be able to say at that point, if Gustafsson pans out, maybe they're finishing first in a couple of years in the division. But right now, I just kind of see them two as middle of the pack. They're in there to be. I just got them, thrown in the soup with Nashville and Winnipeg. Two other teams that I feel like just have a lot of. I know Winnipeg just nailed down Scheifele and Hellebuck, but I just kind of feel like those teams are in transition a little bit much. If you look at it, Kyle Connor, to me, superstar. If I was a team with draft picks, I would throw a bunch of draft picks at the Jets, and I'd say, I'm on Kyle Connor. 200 goals, 200 assists, in I think 5 years. And I don't know who else has done that, but it ain't many guys. On the back end, I look at teams like Nashville and Winnipeg. You got guys that are older. You got McDonough in Nashville. His game must have dropped off significantly if Tampa just lets him go like that. I didn't see that coming. When they dealt him right away, Cooper and their GM down there, they are not guys to mess around. When they let you go, it's a year early versus a year late. Bill Belichick syndrome. They get rid of you, and then a year later, everyone finds out why they got rid of you. So, Winnipeg, same thing, the Neil Pionks of the world. I know they got Morrissey, but in terms of how many games are those guys going to help you win on a regular basis? Are they going to be able to get it where you're going to have, 4-game winning streak, a 1-game, 2-game losing streak, and then you're going to win 3 games in a row again? I just see teams like I said, Minnesota, Nashville, Winnipeg, they're all kind of in the soup together. Maybe one of them gets hot and jumps out of the soup, but I don't think so. I think all 3 of those teams are just kind of where they are, And I think teams like, you brought in Ryan O'Reilly in Nashville, and you got Forsberg. And I'm like, those are 2 big-name guys. But still, I look and I think, who's going to score the goals on that team? Just, you got 2 guys, and I think if another team has got a good checking first line, second line, and they can match it up well against, then, now you're going to be looking at your third and fourth lines to be the teams that are keeping you in games. Not a good recipe. Let's jump down to 7th in the West, in the Central Division. I'm sorry, Chicago Blackhawks. Listen, Bedard got his first goal. Bedard's got his first assist. Hell, he's even got his first penalty. So, he's hit the Gordie Howe high mark for, 2 games already. Look, they're going to be good in the future. I think what they did bringing Taylor Hall in, as smart as you can get. You look, Taylor Hall, first overall pick 13 years ago. The guy was a superstar. When he got to Edmonton, for years, the guy proved why he was the number 1 overall draft pick. But you're going to need a guy who can take the pressure off the kid. And a guy like Taylor Hall can basically, say to the kid, listen, stand right next to me wherever I go. What I do, you do. And that's how you become a professional. What I eat, you eat. When I go to sleep, you go to sleep. All that kind of stuff. That's the reason they brought Taylor Hall in. All the on the ice stuff, that's great. And it is going to help him to have somebody who's out there. I don't want to say he's got Bedard skills, but I'll definitely say that he's got good skills and he's got enough skills that he can skate with them. And then the other guy, Donato, that they had on the line with them, another good guy. Another guy who could play, jack of all trades. So, you need him to kill penalties. You need him on the power play. He's available for both. Lastly, and finishing, I think possibly could be in the running for the first overall pick next year, St. Louis. I just feel like with the sell-off that they had last year, I think that guys quit on Berube after that happened. Maybe Berube's a hard ass. Maybe he's one of those guys who, holds you accountable, and guys don't like that. He's very vocal in the press. He's not afraid. I'm not going to say he's calling guys out in the press, but he's not afraid to say how he feels about the team and how he thinks the team's playing, whether it's good or bad. Binnington, that's just, to me, you just hope that the guy gets his marbles straight and that he doesn't, freak out on anybody this year. And I don't know, you just hope that the guy's not posturing and try to be like, I'm the crazy goalie. You want to be a crazy goalie, stop some pucks, show everybody how crazy you are. I don't know, stop a puck with your eyeball. Anyway, I don't see St. Louis doing much this year, and I honestly do see them, in the running, with Chicago, Anaheim, San Jose, Philly could be in that mix if, maybe they deal Carter Hart early on in the season and they just decide, tank Ola. Columbus, who knows how it's all going to pan out. Maybe Fantilli only scores 30 points this year, 35 points. Maybe it takes him a little while as an adjustment period. But you definitely need Johnny Hockey to get back to being a 100-point guy. And for sure, you got to stick a firecracker up Laine's booty, and you got to get him to score 40 goals again. And he's got to be an 80-point guy. And he's got to be a guy that guys fear on the power play. And right now, he's not. So, anyway, listen, that's all we've got for today. And I just wanted to thank everybody again for watching Clearing the Benches. Let's look forward to seeing you again in the next episode. And as always, let them know you're out there.